What is the episode that you relate to the most? Maybe it's a theme, a character, something.
Bells of St. John, because I too have Wi-Fi issues. But that's it.
G'day and welcome to a brand new series of Who to Be Buried With. Based off of Brett Goldstein's podcast, Films to Be Buried With, this is where we bring on members from the Doctor Who community, we tell them they've died, and that the people of Doctor Who Heaven want to get to know them through the episodes that mean the most to them. Our guest today is the streamer, the podcaster, the YouTuber, George Sheard. He's an incredible guest. He talks all things about his favourites and least favourite episodes of Doctor Who, the episodes that he's watched the most. He talks about his time on set during Chibnall's era of Doctor Who and a whole bunch of awesome, juicy little things. So stay tuned for that. So make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, and let's go get George Sheard into his grave.
50% podcast.
Connor, would you like to introduce our fantastic, amazing guest today, mate?
Of course, we are here with George, the number one. Love him, fantastic.
George Sheard, the one and only, mate. Thank you for joining us.
How are you?
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on. This is very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Awesome, mate. Yeah. So you are where do we start with you, mate? You've done so much over your time.
It's a lot.
It's a YouTuber. You're a Twitch streamer, a Who bulletiner, a nostalgia beta. Talk to us, mate. What do you do?
The nostalgia part.
What do? I do too much, apparently. No, I've had a good history in doing sort of Doctor Who YouTube over the years. And I think it's just kind of expanded and kind of grown since then. I don't do as much like YouTube content now, but I very much enjoy the podcast medium. Very much enjoy doing live streams because it's a bit easier and I don't have to edit it, so that's fun.
Absolutely.
There's a bit of an extensive history. Like, I've done a lot of Doctor Who YouTube in the past, almost sort of to a point where I'm like, I don't know what else I could do now.
Yeah. I was there in the Percy the Cat days, mate. That was huge.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you definitely, I remember, back in the day when even, Crispy was uploading and stuff, and there were, less Doctor Who, YouTube channels. You definitely were one of the first people to...
One of the goats.
Upload. Yeah, one of, the OGs and stuff.
It's just mad, because I don't really think of myself like that. I remember there being, a generation... and I was sort of the new kid on the block for a little while, and I was sort of this is weird. So for me, I looked up to Crispy, and I think at the time the Who Addicts and stuff, and there's plenty of YouTubers around then who had made a great sort of community in the Doctor Who sort of online community on YouTube, and I was sort of just I was just doing my thing, and one random video pops off, and it's oh, okay, I guess I'm here now, and hello, this is weird.
Yeah, mate.
But yeah, no, it's interesting.
So with your new podcast and stuff, would you say you weren't just more wanting to expand more on other things that aren't just Doctor Who and stuff, wanting to talk about other things as well other than just that? Yeah,
definitely. I think with Doctor Who is something when you've done YouTube stuff with it for however long, I think it was at that point probably about 9-10 years on YouTube doing various different things. And the last sort of 4 or 5 with it doing sort of well and having a following and kind of keeping up to date with that. I think I just sort of got tired with that, and I think I've tried many podcast projects. I've done many ones before where it's lasted 2 episodes, lasted 10 episodes.
That tends to happen.
You just sort of everyone goes through it, and you sort of lose motivation.
Trial and error.
Yeah, with Nostalgia Bit, my co-host Cooper is someone I've known for a long time. We've been friends for over 10 years, and we don't live anywhere near each other, but we meet up every year around Christmas. And he just sort of mentioned it offhand and was oh, we should do a podcast. And I was I'm actually down with that idea because I've done it myself and it's hard. So doing it with a co-host, I was this is something I want to try. And if we can kind of split that workload and stuff, then it actually works out well for me to do. And it's worked so far. I mean, we've done it for almost a year weekly. So I'm happy with that.
That's great, yeah.
Amazing, mate. Congrats on
keeping that consistency
the almost year.
As well, it's hard. It's not I feel like, yeah, I think all creators can kind of relate to that of just the starting the projects that only last like a couple of episodes and then
it's
goes
always
down,
the same.
like,
but you've just got to use it. And like it's all about being like creative and kind of just working out slowly but surely what works. And like I've done podcasts before where I'm like, I love this format, but it can't just be me and like a guest because I struggle to like pull that every week and like come up with new things, and I think that's something I personally really struggle with, just trying to like keep up that consistency. Whereas now it's very much like this podcast can be whatever we want it to be, and we'll have weeks on end where we'll talk about Doctor Who if we want, but we'll also have weeks where we'll do like horror films and you know, other TV shows and like other news that's going on. And that sort of freedom was something we kind of both enjoyed. So it was sort of like we could kind of take it in a different angle, but that's years of me trialing and erroring, I guess, with many different projects to get to a point where I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing now, and I'm glad to like collaborate that, and this is exactly what works. And
amazing, mate. And we like to ask everyone.
Yeah, I know this question's
It's
coming.
huge
It's
question.
classic. It's classic.
How are we feeling
Yeah,
about
how you
Doctor
feel
Who at
about
the
Doctor
moment,
Who
mate?
these days?
yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think the difficulty with Doctor Who at the moment, I think, is expectations were incredibly high. And they were always going to be, because you bring back, you know, Russell T Davies, who is, for lack of a better title, like the second coming of Christ in the Doctor Who community.
No, exactly right. Yeah,
I think it's a tricky one, right? Because with everyone, there's almost so much nostalgia, and I think with a lot of people who are active in the community now, were a lot younger. Obviously, when Russell had his first sort of showrunnership, like when David Tennant left, I must have been like 8, 9 years old. So, like, I don't remember there being any sort of negative sides to that at the time. And then, you know, every writer has their quirks and every writer has things that people aren't going to like. And I think that expectation was always going to get the better of everyone. That being said, I enjoyed it. I just wanted something more. I think I was like, kind of expecting something more with season 1. And I really enjoyed the 60th specials. Like, I really, really got that and loved it. And got that sort of feeling. But I kind of wanted to get that. I don't know, I kind of wanted season 1 to feel like series 1, right? Like with Eccleston and Rose. Like, I kind of wanted that back to basics kind of vibe. And there's just, obviously it's never going to be exactly the same, and it shouldn't be. It should never be repeating history, but I think, I don't know. I don't really know exactly what I kind of expected or wanted, but I think for me there was just something where I'm like, I don't know, like this, it is for me, but there's elements that aren't, and I'm fine with that. I'll still watch it, I'll still enjoy it, but I want season 2 to kind of step up a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally agree.
It's like walking that like tightrope of like not being like over nostalgic, but also taking the elements that we loved from it, but then doing something new with it. Like it's a hard, I mean, it's a hard thing to do. Like it's not easy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's tricky. Like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy to be a
No,
it's a tricky job, you know.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Are we a 73 yards defender?
I need to rewatch it. I partially yes, partially no. I'm really I am, if you will, I'm really 50% on it. I don't know. I sort of, again, like, I like what they're going for, but I feel like more time could have been spent with the politics stuff.
Sure.
And I would have loved that to be expanded, because I've watched like Russell's Years and Years sort of mini series was excellent. Loved that. I was a massive fan of that when it came out, and I was sort of loving to see what political angle we'd throw into this. And it was all in all about 10 minutes and was very surface level. And I'm like, come on, we could have got more. But I do like the episode, and it's definitely one of the better ones of the series.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when should we tell him?
Oh no!
You know, not a fucking again, right?
Oh,
every time, mate, we have a guest on this podcast.
You always break the news to me, Aiden.
It's hard, isn't it?
Does it get easier?
No, mate. The mortality rate is so bloody high on this podcast.
No, it never gets easier.
George, I don't know how to tell you this, my guy. I know you just woke up in the morning in the UK and
you're get easier,
feeling great, but you're dead, mate. There's no easy way to say it, but you're
joking.
You've copped it
right now.
You deceased,
like literally right now.
Oh,
crazy.
man.
Sorry.
That explains all the fucking spiders and skeletons behind me and shit. Yeah, that explains it, actually.
You're already in a coffin. I hate to ask, mate, if it's a little bit too much, but how did you die?
Well, I'm trying to. The thing is, I didn't know how to answer this, and there's sort of like a question that you prep these things for podcasts where it's like, you know, what do you like about this episode and all that sort of thing, and it's like, what's the most me way to die? And I tried to think of something funny, and I thought, if it's me, it's gonna be getting hit by a bus whilst posting a TikTok.
Nice.
And I think that probably sums up my morning routine. Get up, I'm just on my phone frantically posting a podcast TikTok going, get that out, and wham.
Gone, mate.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit of a sad one, to be honest.
It's topical though. You
Yeah.
know? It's very modern. You know, it's a modern response.
crazy.
I respect
Do people
it.
go for something like more lighthearted than that? I don't know.
I think one of my favorite ones was Troy looking at his pop vinyls and the pop vinyls falling off the shelf and crushing him to death.
I thought that was Snares who said like the crush from the DVDs. Right, it was Troy who said that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
crush,
that was a
the
wild
crush
one.
from the pop vinyls.
But the bus hit, I like it as much as you can, like being hit by a bus.
Yeah.
I'm here for it because what it's done is it's brought you to our land, right? Which is Docky Who Heaven. Hello. So you're not dead forever. We've got Docky Who Heaven behind us. The big pearly gates.
The gates, yeah.
You can
And
take
we
it
are the
around.
St. Christopher's.
We are.
Said Doctor Who Heaven.
We're going to decide whether or not you can head into those gates, mate.
Yeah, we'll be judging.
We're going to ask some serious Doctor Who questions, and if you answer them poorly, you're off to hell, my friend. I'm very, very sorry.
Uh-oh. Doctor Who Hell. All the greats are there, you know.
Yeah, you can go up there with who have we got in there? We've got Josh, Barry's, Troy,
Crispy,
and other guests who are all jumping up there very soon. So, mate, we've got a little questionnaire here for you.
Okay.
But before that, do you have any deep thoughts about what actually happens when you die?
even more deep now.
Again, like, this is one of those ones where, like, how do you prep for a question like that? I genuinely, not to bring the vibe down, I'm very much a sort of nothing kind of guy. I don't know. I feel like everything that you want to achieve in life, do it. You know, like, don't wait for something after. Don't wait for a reward. Like, you know, don't like live your life by the moral code of something that I mean, do it if you want to be great. Do that. But I think, you know, live your life to the fullest. You could really put this on a t-shirt. I'm coming up with so many ideas that would be in sort of
That's actually
corner
it's a beautiful
shops.
answer.
Yeah, you said it was a mood killer, but I feel like I'm motivated.
That's a nice. I feel very motivated.
I'm motivated to
from
stop doing this
It's
podcast
actually
and do what
kind
I
of
want to do.
Yeah, well, that's the advice I need to hear. So I'm going to take that. I'm taking that, George. I'm taking it.
Awesome. So let's get into the questions that will decide your fate, my
Let's
mate.
do it. This is where it gets tricky.
We'll start at the very beginning, shall we? What was the very first episode of Doctor Who that you ever saw?
So the first ever episode was Dalek for me.
Right.
Series 1, Dalek. So I was young. I was probably 4 when that came out, and it was very much a memory of my dad watching it, me walking in, being interested, and I vividly remember this image of the Dalek levitating up the stairs,
Right.
and scaring me shitless. I ran out screaming and going, no, didn't want to. And then about a year later, my dad actually sat me down with a couple of box sets, and we watched Series 1 and 2 for like a couple of weeks, and I just completely got obsessed by it. But my very first episode, my very first memory was Dalek.
Was your dad a Doctor Who fan, like pre-Series 1, or was he just sort of tuning into Series 1?
He was sort of, I wouldn't say he was like a diehard fan. Like, he watched it when he was a kid, so he was very much like, he grew up on like Tom Baker, early Peter Davison. Like, he really has like strong memories of his childhood watching like Earthshock, right? He still talks about it now, even though he's not a big Doctor Who fan. It always surprises me and catches me off guard when he mentions like Earthshock. I'm like, oh, right, okay.
He would have loved Power of the Doctor.
Yeah, he did. I watched it with him, and he loved it. It's like, it's interesting because he sort of didn't. He just got to stop watching around sort of late Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy. Like, he just didn't watch it, and he was more of like a Star Trek guy growing up. But when the new series came out, it was obviously met with a lot of buzz and reinvention. Russell T Davies, Chris Eccleston, Billy Piper. It was like, Doctor Who is back. What's it going to be like? So he was interested. I think he watched the first series. I've never really asked him about him. I probably should. But I think he watched the first series and then knew that I would love it. So was like, oh, we'll will show you it. Because at the time, I was obsessed with Toy Story 2 and Spider-Man 2. So he was just like...
Speaking your language, mate.
I literally was talking about Spider-Man 2 and just saw it before you came on. Like, literally. I love that movie so much.
It's so good.
That's great.
Such a good film.
So great. So great.
But yeah.
I do love how you mentioned the like the Dalek like levitating and stuff, like, because I remember just watching that and like that scene's so great with the stairs and you're like, finally they've beat this Dalek, and then it just starts
Joke's on you, mate. It's coming up.
And it generally is scary, which leads me to my next question. What episode scared you the most?
Dalek.
Yeah,
so
Dalek.
many. As a 4-year-old, Dalek, I think like growing up, like I think everyone has the answer, like Blink. I wasn't, weirdly, like even as young as I was, I didn't really get scared. But I got more scared by the poster of the Weeping Angel that I had in my room. I was more scared of that than I was of the episode. But
an image of an angel becomes an angel, am I right?
Exactly. I was ahead of my time when I was like 7.
Crazy.
Yeah. For me, I have very vivid memories of being terrified of like Girl in the Fireplace.
Nice.
And yeah, so that one for me was just, it's that opening scene. You know, David Tennant meets Renette for the first time. Not David Tennant, the Doctor. And they obviously the clock on the mantle's broken. The ticken's still there. He looks under the bed, gets swiped at. He looks under and sees the legs stood at the other side, and it's that
terrifying
classic.
Yeah, and it's like obviously it's like traditional sort of like French sort of garments and all that sort of thing. And I was like, but there was something so like clown-like and quite like just frightening about that sort of emotionless ticking and sound effects. They had a flash game on the Doctor Who website, which was like this. You had to like hunt clockwork robots, and it made all the same sound effects. I couldn't play it. It was so like scary for me. I just couldn't do it. And the other one I can think of was probably Lazarus Experiment. I don't know why, but
That's
as a kid,
wow, nice.
as a kid, like I don't know what it was, but there was something about that grotesque giant like Mark Gatiss scorpion that I was like, that's the only time I vividly remember actually hiding behind the sofa.
Yeah, right.
Wow,
That's
that's why we love doing this. Is all those like different answers.
Definitely.
Like, that's a thirst, and I love that. That's fantastic. Lazarus Experiment.
Crazy,
brilliant.
Mate.
Good old Mark Gatiss.
Are you a crier?
Like scared crier?
No, emotional crier.
Okay, yeah, no,
like, watching
general
TV.
life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm very much so.
Well, do you have an episode of Doctor Who that makes you cry the most?
It's tricky. I think as a kid, I used to cry, like I'd scream crying when David Tennant was regenerating, but I grew out of that about a year ago. For me, so I've been rewatching a little bit of like series 1 and stuff recently, kind of going through, just like picking out episodes here and there. Father's Day, I found really like emotional, like rewatching that. I don't know what it is about the sort of, because I think I'm at the point now where when a Doctor regenerates, it's like I used to hate that as a kid, but now it's like it's the same character and I still love it. The interpretations, it's like, but with Father's Day, there's something so like personal and something so familial about it, where it's like it's so surface level, ground level, like it's not grand and space, and also it's a lot of like time travel-y sort of stuff in there. But I love the sort of the situation that's created because of Rose's instinct to save her dad that she can't remember at all in her life, and that bond, that slow working out. You don't expect Rose's dad to immediately work out that she's from the future. You know, we're brought up on films like Back to the Future where like that joke is always hidden from the people in the past. They don't know these characters are from the future, but immediately he clocks onto it. It's that sort of level of reality that he's completely chill with, that he gets it and slowly works out himself without having to be told that's what the answer is. And you get that sort of revelation of the Doctor still protecting Rose, still protecting Pete, even though he knows that would fix everything. He's still trying to find different ways of doing it. And just the emotional side of it, I think, is absolutely marvelous and so well handled, that the performances from all involved, the writing, the music, it just for some reason just gets me like welling up. I was like, it's brilliant. It's so well made. Yeah. It's so good.
It's crazy. Like from like 20 minutes in, it feels emotional. There's just a vibe to it, like a really like not melancholic, but there's like, I don't know, there's emotional vibe to it, and then it all just climaxes at the end, mate. And it's
Well, it
just
starts with like Child Rose as well, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
it's like,
true.
And Jackie
So
showing
that's
them the photos and stuff.
an instant
and,
tearjerker, mate.
Yeah, it's really, that episode is so great. Like it's like, it's so rewatchable and like it's so emotional and it reminds you of like why it's like when we were kids we fell in love with this show. It's just it's so great,
And underrated, I'd say.
I agree. I completely agree.
Massively underrated. I think it's one that, again, and this is what I was thinking about. It's like I could sort of mention any episodes that are standard tearjerkers, like companion departures, like regenerations. But that one for me is one that's just any other episode, but is just so emotionally rich and so brilliant.
Sure.
Well, speaking of underrated, which episode is regarded as terrible that you love? Because I feel like we, as Doctor Who fans, we all have these episodes that we love, but other people are like, that was just awful.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, this one, because I was sort of thinking about it and I was like, I want to say Love and Monsters, but I feel like everyone says that, so it can't be as hated as people think, right? It can't be. People say it's terrible. Because it feels like everyone's like, hot take, it's pretty good. Because now everyone's like, oh, it's good, right? So it's not a hot take. Everyone thinks it.
True.
I think the generally terrible episodes, I'm like, yeah, they're bad. But there's one that I feel like is maybe like either incredibly underrated or generally not appreciated or talked about enough. And I would say The Witchfinders, which I think is quite out there. But I think with that one, there's something so brilliantly like Doctor Who about that. And I don't know what. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's just everything from that. Like, it's got the standard issues of like the Series 11 companions kind of standing around not doing much, but the performances of like King James and the sort of like the mud creatures are very sort of like classic Doctor Who-y. Just the vibes of that episode, the music and everything, I think they just really got it. And I'm really surprised that the writer of that episode never came back for another series after, because that was a really strong episode. And I urge people to kind of go back and rewatch it. It's not one that maybe people think is like terrible. It's certainly not anyone's like top 10 worst episodes, maybe like not even of that era. But I think for me, it's one that sort of was kind of brushed off at the time and doesn't really get talked about. So I feel like that's a good one to kind of mention. I don't know what else I'd kind of regard as terrible, but that I like, because I feel like there's a lot of them that I'm just like, no, I get it. They're pretty bad. But yeah, that's one that kind of came to mind.
Yeah.
It just, if I'm not mistaken, it just got a Target novel.
It was a few years ago, but yeah, it's got one. Yeah,
and it has, what's his name? You mentioned, was it King Richard? Is that who you said? King Richard?
It might be. I think King. I said King James, but I could be wrong.
King James.
I think that's right. Yeah.
He's played by, what's his name? Something Cummins, I think.
Alan Cummins.
Who was like a big like actor to get in. And I remember him being like really good in it. Like
And Sagan's score is really good in it. There's a vibe to it that's really cool.
There's something about Sagan's score in Series 11 generally that I remember, and as much as I don't like love the way these like released albums are presented, like I love the fact that every episode sounds different. Like he just does a whole different style of instrumentation and theme for every episode that he does. If it's futuristic, it sounds futuristic. It sounds like it's made with futuristic instruments. If it's like the Witchfinders, it's all very royal and very old school and orchestraic, and I appreciate that, and the Witchfinders is a great example of that.
He like Sagan had like the impossible task, I'd say, of like trying to take over like Murray's job. It's it's insane. Like it's like, how do you even try to do that?
Well, I think he did the perfect thing of not like. Yeah, I think he did the perfect thing of not trying to replicate it. He tried to do his own thing and put his own stamp on it. And I think he was very successful in that.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I love what you were saying. Like his music's good, but on the albums, it can be so frustrating sometimes.
Oh, I hate it. Yeah.
You've got 30 seconds of an absolute banger, and then you have to do like a minute of dung, 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 and then it gets really cool again. It's like, it's really hard.
I just wish the themes would be released. Like I think the Flux album is the worst offender for me. The Flux album has some of his best music in, but you have to listen to 8 minutes of just noise before you get to the Flux theme, and I'm like, come on, do something.
Please. So I guess sort of on the note of terrible, it doesn't have to be terrible, but what is an episode that you used to love but doesn't hold up anymore?
I think there's so many of these. I think every Doctor Who fan has like just so many of these. For me, I could think I've enlisted 3, but I think it could apply to many. Victory of the Daleks is one. So Victory of the Daleks is one that I grew up and I was like, this is great, historical, World War II, Churchill, Daleks. You know, it was all very exciting at the time. When I was like 9, 10, I was like, this is great. And now I watch it now, and I'm just like, this is ass. This is not.
It's
like,
a rough one.
There's some good bits in it. Like I like when, like Amy kind of saves the day by sort of humanizing the Doctor character. I can't remember what his name was, but because he's like turned into a bomb or something, and she's the one who sort of breaks through to him, whereas the Doctor can't. And I quite like that touch. But the Dalek spaceship set is just terrible.
Ugh.
The Dalek designs were kind of. And just the whole like, I think at that point this was 2010, so like living in the UK, this was sort of like leading up to like the Jubilee and the Olympics. Everyone was patriotic, whereas now you look at it and go, oh, anything patriotic is just kind of a bit like, you know, like a match day kind of Brexit geezer, and you're sort of like, oh, that's a bit of I don't want to associate with that. So now I'm seeing like a World War II patriotic, you know, and I'm like, oh, this is a stinker now.
But it does have Mark Geddes in a Spitfire in space.
True.
Which
that
Danny
is
Boy,
true.
is his name?
worth it.
Danny Boy to the Doctor.
That's something as well. What? I still don't like years. Like, I mean, when 2010 that came out? I mean, it's been 14 years. I still don't understand. Bubbles, air bubble in space. What?
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
And he comes back.
He does.
He comes back
He
in
does.
Good Man Goes to War.
Yeah.
Like for like 10 seconds. It's like, Danny Boy, I've knocked out there. They're like, yeah, it's like so.
But it makes less sense because I'm like, at least with this, it was above Earth. Where the fuck is Demons Run?
Yeah.
That's like at the other end of the universe.
You could get someone a lot easier just to come in and do that job. I swear. But no, Danny Boy.
That's crazy.
Why not?
Yeah. That's one. Nightmare in Silver is another. I remember enjoying that when it came out, but now I'm like, that is just one I don't really mess with very much now. I think the problem with that is at the time it was like, wow, what a new, interesting, refreshing way to do the Cybermen. And now we look back and go, that weird anomaly where they could like run really fast and do all this weird shit, and they could like heal themselves, because that never happened since. So it's like, well.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just sort of weird to look back on, and then you've got the kids, who are just awful.
Angie and Artie, everyone's favourite Doctor Who characters.
You just get a lot of like child actors in Moffat's era, and some of them are good. Some of them are good, and some of them are in the Forest of the Night. You've got like and that's a perfect example of just an episode that was like at the time felt very new and exciting and refreshing, but now is just like. It's not really one that I would ever want to rewatch, really.
They were like unbeatable in that episode, and I feel like it's like you're just gonna create the unbeatable like character, like villain. Pardon me, like, you know, it's like is there any fight? It's like they're just unbeatable.
And
it's
just lame.
kind of
it just gets kind of lame as well at certain points.
Yeah, sure does.
Yeah.
The thing with the Cybermen, it's like you've got this horror aspect which is just kind of removed from them in this. It's like making them really fast, making them unbeatable. It's sort of a thing that's lost. I'd actually say the way the Timeless Children did the Cybermen with the sort of Cybermasters being able to regenerate and stuff is a much better way of doing it than what they did in Nightmare in Silver, because it just removes the horror aspect of it. Like, they should be scary. Cybermen should be scary, but they're not in that. They're just super fast and I don't know. I feel I don't know. It's not one that I particularly love to go back to, but yeah.
Fair. Did you say you had a third?
I think Kablam, to be honest. I remember when that came out, I was like, this is great. This is like the best of the series. I love it. And now I look back and I'm like, it's not, though. And I think there's also that whole wave of like criticism of how the ending is written and how the sort of plot resolves itself and what side the Doctor's on. You know, it's all like the kind of message behind it is a bit skewed. And I think with that context, as well as just like time going on, I like what they're trying to do, but it's sort of like, I don't know, it does get lost a little bit in what the message is supposed to be and what was actually said. And I think it's not one that I've ever really ran to rewatch. At the time, I was like, "Oh, this is good. I like this. This is solid. This is really good, exciting." Doctor Who. Now it's like looking back, I'm like, it's actually quite by the numbers, and it's a bit basic. And I think that was kind of doubled down when Pete McTeague came back and wrote Praxeus. I think that's another one where I was just like, this is just not up to what I was expecting.
I was going to say his kind of messaging sometimes can be interesting, which is why I guess I'm also curious to see how he does with War Between Land and Sea. I'm interested to see how he handles that relationship with Russell now, and see because his messaging sometimes can be a bit like, what are you trying to really go for here?
Yeah, but hopefully them working together, Russell can sort of rein him in a little bit.
I would agree, yeah.
Because Russell's usually pretty good with that kind of thing.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. I think Pete's also great with the box set stuff as well. All those promotional
of course
videos and stuff, and he's excellent with that. And he's very a very involved and talented sort of Doctor Who sort of team member, really, in terms of the merchandising stuff. I just want to see better from and I have high expectations for War Between Land and Sea. I look forward to that, and I hope he does a good job with it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Going a bit more positive now. What episode would you say means the most to you? Not because of the episode itself, but because of the memories that are associated with it.
Cute.
Yeah, it's a good one. I've got a couple of sort of daft answers where it's because of very much a very exciting experience I got to have with that. So I got to the very lucky experience of visiting the set once for when they were filming Revolution of the Daleks, and that was obviously a phenomenal experience.
That was insane. That was great. I heard that's
I remember you saying that.
So can you just quickly talk about that? So how did all that come about? How did you get to do that?
I don't know. It's one of those things where it's you just don't question it. You get an email chain coming through, and they're because I think in that time there was a lot of just interest in this person is doing YouTube content, let's invite them along to this. And Doctor Who's always had a bit of a rapport with that, but they tend to be very selective for very specific eras. That, I got to go to the set for that, and I got to go to the Series 11 premiere in Sheffield. But I've not done anything else since then or before then. It was very much that little, about couple year period where I was invited to a couple of things, and it was amazing. And it's one of those things, you get that email through, and I'm just I'm not gonna question it. If this is legit and I'm welcome there, then 100% I'll make that work, and I'll do it, because what an experience. But that set visit was crazy. Really, really crazy, surreal. Still.
Didn't you know about John Barrowman coming back before everyone else? Was that?
So that was the thing. Yeah, because the thing is, we didn't sign anything,
NDAs or anything.
It was very much crazy. A trust thing where it was please don't ruin this. And I was you know what? Yeah. Okay, I don't want to burn bridges here. I get that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I was on. I think. So I went there, and there was very much a little bit of. It took a little bit of time for us to be let in, so it was very much they either had forgotten that we were coming, or they were very much they had to just double check, because obviously this was a day that Barrowman was on set, so that's a massive spoiler. And this was about 6 months before Series 12 aired, so this was 18 months plus before the special came out. So Barrowman was very, very secret. I think his name on the call sheet was an anagram of Rose Tyler. It was very secret. They kept it very, very under wraps. But eventually, they gave us a tour, and it was pretty amazing. But I didn't know about Barrowman until towards the end of the day. It was after lunch, and we went back to the TARDIS set. I wasn't told a thing. And I literally sat down where the monitors are, where you can see what's going on set. And I saw, and at the time I was watching Torchwood for the first time, so this was insane. I saw on the screen, it was the TARDIS set, and it was Jodie in full costume, and then next to her, John Barrowman in full costume. And I was oh, whoa, wow. I just lost my mind. Insane. Yeah, it was crazy. And then obviously it's that whole thing of, I have to keep this secret. And then, when stuff started happening in Series 12, Fugitive of the Jadoon, I was sat there going I know who this is. I was immediately I know where this is going, because I have that sort of inkling. Yeah, amazing experience, but that's sort of a very special memory for me of that episode. I don't love the episode that much, but I just that the memories of that for me are the visiting the set and seeing that. I mean, what a fantastic operation they had. And people, by the way, they're all lovely, which is why I think I'm a little bit defensive of Chibnall Zero, because the man is so nice. Like, he is unbelievably kind and lovely and wonderful. Whatever you think about his writing or his sort of show-running ability, like, he is such a nice guy and was so accommodating. Like, he's the showrunner, but he took it upon himself to give like us a little tour round the whole thing, and like the whole thing, right. Like the edit suites, the various studios, and like make us feel welcome. I think he even gave me a mug. So I don't know what that, it's just little things, and it's like that experience I have in my mind.
That's
it's
very
like,
sweet.
What a nice guy, and what just a lovely experience to have. That's always going to live in my mind. It's like something I was like, this is phenomenal. Like, I'm seeing the creation of something I've grown up watching, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing, mate. Great story.
Yeah.
Did you have another one? Did you say?
So yeah, I did say The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I got to go to that premiere, so that's another like experience where I was like, getting to watch that and then walk around and see like Bradley Walsh and Jodie like just mixing amongst people after was quite fun. But a more sort of like wholesome one, I think, would be Journey's End. Is one that I remember. Well, more Stolen Earth than Journey's End, but I just remember very vividly. Like, I sat down the whole family watching it, and I usually, when I was growing up, I'd watch it with my dad and then my brother. My mum was never really into it. My grandparents kind of watched some stuff, and so they could sort of talk to me about it as a kid. But there's one time I really remember David Tennant, suddenly regenerating in the TARDIS, cutting to be continued, and it got the whole family around. Both my parents, my grandparents sat around watching. It's a very, very kind of warm memory in my mind, like a very vivid image of being sat there watching that, and that's something that I hold very dearly. It's like a memory of an episode where that's what Doctor Who feels like to me. It's home. It's something I grew up watching. It's something that connects me to me when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and it's something that's always going to kind of be there. It's not just something I like to waffle about on the internet, and I do like to waffle about it on the internet, but it's something that connects me to home, and especially now I don't live like at where I grew up and away from my family now. So I love that memory of sort of feeling closer to home, and whenever I miss seeing my family that often, I think of stuff like that, where it's like that's something that means a lot to me and connects me back to that.
That's so beautiful. That
Amazing.
was so bloody cute, mate. Love that. Do you have an episode with the best ending?
Yeah, there's a lot. Obviously, you can think of like so many. For me, Name of the Doctor comes to mind.
Yes.
And
Beautiful.
it's
Amen.
great. But also not only because of the John Hurt thing, which is incredible and a great sort of cliffhanger ending. For me, it's the scene between Doctor and River. The scene before he goes into his own time stream, that the whole story has been them at different points in their life meeting at the wrong times, and that is a place where it's based after Silence of the Library for River, and it's sort of at the end of Matt Smith's life, and it's the last time them two together on screen sort of meet. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's a really, really beautiful moment, because it's finally they've lined up and that story has come to a really satisfying end. And there's the phenomenal epilogue of Peter Capaldi's River Song story. I love that, but this is the end of that era for me. And that scene where she's not even there and he still sees her and sort of builds up the courage to say goodbye in the most him way that he could. The music... the track Wedding a River Song playing there is just phenomenal, and it's one thing that I think just that, and then the John Hurt thing, of course, but that as an ending to an episode, I think is beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
There's also a fantastic joke there where with the shoulder Paternoster gun looking around, like, what the fuck's going on?
We just rewatched that like a month ago, didn't we?
Yeah. Cracking episode.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'd say this is probably, in my opinion, the hardest question on the list. Which episode has the best opening?
Yeah, I struggle with this one. I definitely struggle with this one. I could think of one that came to mind, and I'm sure there are better ones out there, but one that sticks in my mind as one that I always forget about is New Earth. So
Oh,
New
yeah.
Earth
I love
has
that.
this.
Yeah, okay.
It's the opening to the season, and we've already been introduced to David Tennant as the Doctor in the Christmas special. We haven't seen them go traveling together, but it's that sort of thing of you intercut between Rose saying goodbye to her family, giant backpack, like loads of like winter clothing and all that sort of stuff, like packed up, ready to go, saying goodbye. They're welcoming her to sort of go off and travel for the first time, really. That wasn't the case in Series 1. And you cut that between that and these wonderful, dark, glowing green close-ups of different areas of the TARDIS as David Tennant sort of like twists
so dark
and
yeah,
plays with some things. Really close-up shots of his face. I think Westminster Bridge is playing, which harks back to the beginning of Series 1. And it's just this really atmospheric vibe, which kind of just throws you into the adventure. It's like you get this calm, collected moment of the Doctor just silently, toying with the TARDIS as he's waiting for Rose. Rose excitingly saying goodbye to her family. And then, bam, the adventure begins. And it's one that I think if you watch it back is actually an unreal episode opening. But there's plenty more out there, probably, but that's one for me that I was like, I remember that vividly and loved that.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really different answer, but a really good one.
Good.
I feel like this question's even harder.
Okay.
This one, is there an episode? What is the episode that you relate to the most? Maybe it's a theme, a character, something.
I genuinely, I had, a joke answer, and I genuinely couldn't think of a real answer. I can't think of it. I put, Bells of St. John, because I, too, have Wi-Fi issues. But that's it. I genuinely, I don't know in terms of, what would you guys say if you were asked that? What do you think, because I'm trying to really, brainstorm.
We've answered that.
Oh God,
what did we say? We'd have to.
We have done
go
it.
back.
We've done these questions. It would have been nearly a year ago, I think. I
can't bloody remember. It is hard.
I said I can't really remember.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. There's a whole
tricky, isn't it?
Listeners. You can listen to the episode where we turn the tables on ourselves and find out. There's a plug for us.
Yeah, the little plug.
But yeah, but I'll take that answer, mate. We're getting some crazy answers for that question at the moment. So
I think I might have said Heaven Sent, just because I kind of like the idea of sometimes when this sounds so cringe and hippie, but kind of how you can sometimes move forward in your life, but sometimes your past can also haunt you a little bit, and it's always following you. That sounds so hippie.
I think you did say Heaven Sent, actually.
I think I did.
You did.
That's hippie and cringe, but I think I did say that.
Yeah.
But I struggle with that question too. How about this one? Okay, which episode objectively is the greatest ever? The greatest of all time in your opinion?
See, this is such a hard question as well. But I have answers for this one. I haven't. There's no jokey answer. I have probably. I've put 2 down, but I can think of many more. I would say Heaven Sent. I think Heaven Sent is if you're talking objectively, it is a film. It is cinematically, it's beautiful. The writing is phenomenal. The performance is just that wonderful one-man show from Peter Capaldi is just a masterclass in acting. Richard Talalay directing, all of that episode is phenomenal, right? But that's not interesting because everyone, I think, says that. So I think, I would also say, I think as a sort of honourable mention, I think World Enough in Time is excellent, and I think that's one that should be mentioned more. But for me, I think this sounds daft, but the God Complex is one that has always rang out in my mind as a perfect, almost perfect Doctor Who story for me, where it's got you've got your running up and down corridors, you've got your dilemmas of loss. It plays on the idea of fear and hope, and most importantly, the companions' hope and in the Doctor. And comfort in that, and why they need to drop that comfort. And there's this, obviously, the wonderful thing about the Doctor talking to Amy and cutting back, and it's actually Amy as a child, and it's it's about it's time you grew up. It's calling her Amy Williams. It's there's a lot of those story beats that have been set up in the previous 2 series, and the thing I love about it is that he drops them off at the end, and I think that is. As a package, as a Doctor Who episode, for me is very much very, very strong, and I think goes incredibly under the radar. And And the ending as well, with that whole thing of Amy going like, why this, why now? And his answer is, what's the alternative? Me standing over yours and Rory's broken body standing over your graves. And that is exactly what happens when they join him again. And he lets them travel with them. And that episode just ages more and more perfectly as time goes on, because you see that happen. You see him give in to temptation and travel with Amy and Rory again. At the end of the Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, when he goes back and sees them again, that seems beautiful. Him kind of almost in a weird way, kind of selfishly going back on the decision that he made in the God Complex, where he said, I will not let these travels kill you. But by doing that and going back on that and letting them travel with him again, that's what happened. And I think it's and I think the God Complex as a package, again, it's just, scary monster, some really high emotional stakes, fascinating set design, brilliant moments from Matt Smith, and it relies entirely on the hope from a companion to a Doctor, and I think that's really, really interesting.
That's that's a great answer. We were staying in a hotel last month with Oscar at Crispy Pro, and we rewatched God Complex. As well as Name of the Doctor as well. And it's the perfect episode to watch when you're staying in a hotel, for one. But I've always loved the episode. I think you've also loved it as well. Like it's always been such a standout. It's great.
I think it's great to have like a sort of standalone-ish episode that really has consequences to the characters.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it.
Like something that changes the Doctor so fundamentally that he lets them go is crazy.
And I think that's sometimes what he's missing about other eras of Doctor Who, where it's like they save these big moments for the finales and the series openers, but actually it's when you get a random episode that's not written by the showrunner and it delivers such powerful kind of emotions and discussions about the dynamic between a Doctor and a companion. I love that. I really, really love that, and I love that that's where this episode took and like an angle from. You have that other character who I can't remember the name of, who's sort of almost teed up as like another companion, And the Doctor feels like he lets her down, and I think that also, again, there's elements of that in there where it's sort of like he promises to save them, he promises to keep them alive, and he doesn't, and he only barely keeps Amy and Rory alive. And I think that's it's fascinating. And then also you get a little 9-1 reference in there as well. You get a little Classic Who reference, which is always good. I love little guys, mate. It's got everything.
Yeah, definitely. Next question. I feel like I might know the answer to this, but which episode have you watched the most?
I'm interested to think what you might think my answer is for this.
Okay, well, what I was going to say, and it's I don't know if this counts as watching it, but obviously you did the black and white version of World Enough for Time, The Doctor Falls. So, I mean, technically you probably spent hours of your life watching this episode.
So, my answer is World Enough in Time. It probably, and that's probably it, is I just have seen it that many times where I genuinely know it almost inside out, shot by shot, and know it so well. I think, if I don't know, like off the top of my head, which ones I've really beyond that, but I think even outside of that project, I have watched World Enough in Time a lot more. I really, really love that story. I think it is phenomenal, and I think it is genuinely one of the best Doctor Who's ever had to offer. And I think it was such a surprise, because I think at the time I went into Series 10 being quite a cynical sort of teenager about it and being like, oh, it's not going to be very good, yada yada, and that absolutely blew me away. I was going into it for John Sim, and came out of it like, wow, like what a phenomenal like episode in terms of performance, in terms of like cinematography, like the horror elements, like doing the Cybermen so beautifully. I think I just really, really good stuff. So I love rewatching that, as morbid as it is. Beyond that, it's a tricky one. There's probably a lot of older ones in there. I think Stolen Earth and Journey's End I've probably watched numerous times because it's just a joyride and it's very easy to watch. Turn Left is another one. Those like Blink, those standalone stories from like early New Who that sort of stick out are ones that you're just inevitably going to revisit so many times. So probably those as well. But I think World Enough in Time would probably be my one. Again, just down to that noir project as well. It's like I've just seen that episode, so I could probably watch it and know what the next shot is going to be, what the next, you know. And I think that level of knowledge is just like, it kind of ruins it, but also is just like, I know it that well at this point.
Yeah, it's amazing at it.
Have you still got like an open link to that?
Somewhere.
Like, I guess it's
Somewhere.
like a movie, I guess you could say.
I think I have it on a hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, I always like...
Oh, that's weird.
I know you release it, and I always went to watch it, and then I tried to find it, I think maybe like last year or something, and couldn't. But I've always been like super interested. Don't you implement parts of Twice Upon a Time in there as well? Like, don't you put the regeneration in there?
Yeah, so my thought is like, well, I think it's... The way I look at Series 10 into like Series 11 is it's like a 5-parter. Like World Enough in Time, Dr. Falls, Twice Upon a Time, Woman Who Fell to Earth, and Ghost Monument are one continuous story. But I think if you want to do like World Enough in Time and Dr. Falls, I was sort of like, you have to wrap it up, otherwise it could just keep going. So I was like, if I'm gonna do like a feature-length edit, I wanted to change the ending. I know the original intention was to have the Doctor regenerate in Dr. Falls, so I wanted to do some edits and also make it your own a little bit. Because I sort of was like, well, I'll put my stamp on it and go, this is what I would like the ending to be if I was going to change it up and make it a little bit more, I don't know, just something a bit different. So
I'd love to watch it.
I incorporated I think, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what I did, but I think it was like I incorporated the idea of when I think it's like in Heaven Sent. That's what it was. So it's like in Heaven Sent when the Doctor's sort of falling, or when he's like crawling through the corridors, and you cut between that and shots of him in his sort of mind palace, and he's in the TARDIS, and he's sort of talking and monologuing. But it's sort of it's like a sort of metaphor for where his mind is at. So I used that and sort of went, well, he's on the floor at the end of Dr. Falls. You know, Bill and Heather, off they go, and he's on the floor. But instead of him waking up and going to the North Pole, South Pole, whichever one it was, he then flashes to a mind palace where he has the monologue from Twice Upon a Time, and then we come back out of that, and he regenerates on the floor into Jodie, and then, yeah, that's that basically.
It's an amazing edit, mate.
So it's just a little, just a fun little idea. But again, it was mostly like out of that whole thing of I've done so many things in the Doctor Who content kind of world, like loads of different things, and that was something where I'm like, this is a bit more filmy, and I was like, I kind of want to try doing like a big edit like that because I've never done it before, and it was a lot of fun. But it was mostly for fun, and if people enjoy it, and you know, and you said like you've got it on a hard drive somewhere, is like really heartwarming to know, because in my mind I'm like, I just did it, put it out there, and whoever wants to watch it can watch it. I just enjoyed making it, and if people get a kick out of that, then amazing. Yeah.
No, nice one. Bloody great. What's next, Connor?
So what would you say is the worst episode of all time?
There's so many. I would say the one that came to my mind was I mentioned it earlier, In the Forest of the Night.
Right.
I hate this episode. I don't think I've referred to it since maybe 2015. I don't think I've referred to it as its actual title. I've always called it In the Forest of the Shite, because that's always what comes to my mind. It's just, I don't know. It's just like terrible. I think it's
grim.
It's that peak of the sort of Danny and Clara back and forward sort of nonsense that I didn't really care or subscribe to. Terrible like CGI animals that pose barely any threat. There's some terrible child acting in there, which obviously can't be helped, but they are taking a school trip to a museum, so you are surrounded by children who are just... They're not that good. Look, well done. Like, good job, whatever. But I really can't, like, I can't enjoy it, and that does put me off. I just think that the general vibe of it is just them walking around the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, cool, but it just isn't... I don't know, it's just something about it. I'm just like, I just dread rewatching that one.
Yeah, and the ending is so cooked. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just, there's so many, it doesn't make much sense. They bring a lot of stuff out of it. They try and make it this really... They try and make it deeper than it ever could be. Yeah. It's the imagery. It's the cool imagery of having London in a big forest. Cool. But like beyond that, it's nothing. There's nothing to it. And I just think...
I think it was a a children's author.
Yeah, Frank Cottrell Boyce, I think, who recently wrote a feature film, I think.
Oh, why?
Yeah. But yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Wow.
Interesting fact for you all.
Well, he came back and did Smile, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they obviously brought back the Amazing
he came back
Rider.
and did Smile. Yeah, so he's saying, yeah.
There's the one pro.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that. Okay,
I'm pretty sure he did.
I think it's him. Yeah,
I think
it
it's
is.
because the other one's like,
Smile is a lot better.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it definitely is. Yeah,
There's one redeeming moment for me in that bloody episode in the Forest of the Shite, which is when Jenna turns around, or she asks a question or something, and then behind her, Peter Capaldi answers, but he's just like behind a tree in the most strangest position you'll see in your life. And I don't know what...
Just peeking out.
I don't know if Pete was like, I want to do this thing, guys. Just let me do this thing. And then, because it's so funny. And you blink and you miss it. But I think when we reviewed it on the pod, I gave it like 3 extra points just because of that moment.
I can't remember that. And I am actually willing to skim not rewatch it, but I'll skim it to find that. Because that sounds fucking amazing.
It's so random. It's so random. So, do you like comedies? Do you like a bit of humor? Speaking of a funny Peter Capaldi moment, you know?
Yeah, I do. I'm partial to a bit of that, yeah.
Do you have an episode of Doctor Who that just makes you laugh?
I sat thinking about this, and then one came to mind, and I was like, of course it is. Boomtown. I think Boomtown is hilarious.
Let's go.
Yeah, yes, it does deal with themes of capital punishment, but it's very funny. Not specifically the capital punishment, but just the vibe of the episode is so like... it's clearly a filler episode on like a low budget that they just kind of threw together, but it's brilliant, and it has got some great themes. I actually unironically love this episode, like the stuff towards the end about like capital punishment and that sort of dilemma with the Doctor and like what he's morally responsible to do, but like this other stuff as well, like the chase out of the Cardiff City Centre when she's climbing out the window.
Oh my god, that is
so good.
The teleporting back and forwards, the fact that she gets turned into an egg, like. There is so much to this episode that is just...
The dinner scene as well is so
good. Where she's like breathing like gas on him and he's got like a spray.
And the dart in the
he
finger.
catches the dart,
catches the dart and then just throws it. Yeah, it's so funny.
It's so funny. It is so funny. And I think that's one of those ones where I'm like, if I want to just watch a kind of like just an average Doctor Who episode, but one that just will make me laugh, that will do it. Anytime. I mean, Love and Monsters is an obvious one as well, but like... Boomtown is funny. Boomtown is really funny.
Yeah. It's a bloody good laugh, mate. Well, you know us, your boys, Connor and Aiden, we're always carrying a coffin along with us, mate. Everywhere we go, we're looking for bodies, right? And so... It
happens.
We heard there was a bit of an incident, whatever the main freeway or whatever in the UK. It's closed down.
There was a bus incident.
There was a bus incident, right? So we come, we're like, well, let's see what's going on. We bring the coffin as usual. We see George on the floor. Oh my god, what are we gonna do?
We see the TikTok app open.
Yeah, the TikTok app's
open. The TikTok app.
Right.
God.
So we grab the phone with the TikTok and we throw it into the coffin. Yeah. We
Didn't
get
even
George
post
scrape him up.
Dear me.
No. We post it for him. Just
hey, there we go. Yeah. Get some more clicks.
Give the fans what they want.
The last TikTok from George.
And then we scrape you up. We throw you in there, and the bus is in a bad state, so we put bits of the bus in there as well to make it easier for everyone.
Nice.
And by the time we're done there, the coffin it's pretty full, But there is room for one thing, one little thing.
And what is that, Aiden?
That is one disc of an episode of Doctor Who that you're going to take to the people of heaven to show them like your love for Doctor Who, how good Doctor Who can be, just like your episode of Doctor Who. We can slide that in there for you. George Sheard, what will that episode of Doctor Who be?
That is, it's a very strange one, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to say The Runaway Bride.
Yeah, you'd love that. Yeah.
Let's go.
Why is that?
I love that.
So The Runaway Bride for me is the first episode of Doctor Who that I watched like on TV as it was coming out and not like as I was growing up watching, catch up on box sets. But it's also one that I think just encapsulates what I love about Doctor Who the most. It's got the humour, it's got the drama, it's got the camp, it's got everything. Mm-hmm. And I think like the scene specifically where the TARDIS appears, down the motorway, chasing after the taxi. like, I still don't think we've seen many things in Doctor Who since then like that. I think everything about this episode is not what you'd expect it to be. If you ask this question to anyone, I'd be surprised if anyone else said this episode, and if they have, amazing. But I think there's so many obvious, amazing, like, landmark Doctor Who episodes out there. But one that I just have a personal love for is The Runaway Bride, and one that I think has everything I love about Doctor Who. It's that era where it felt like, that's my nostalgia of Doctor Who. You know, that every scene of that, when they go to the sort of the after wedding sort of do, and they're playing the Christmas music. You know, giant spider, great, love that. Like, they've got all the references to, like, the Time War and everything. And for me, as a package, it's exactly what I think of, you know, when I think of Doctor Who. And if I, you know, was dying, was hit by a bus, in my sort of, my fleeting memory of Doctor Who would be this exact vibe, this exact era, and maybe this exact episode of Doctor Who.
Beautiful.
I think we have to let him in.
I have to. I mean, that.
Yeah, I love that.
The question of my most watched episode. I said Runaway Bride. That's my most watched episode. I love it. So 100%. I say, let them in.
Go frolic with your new friends. The deceased Whovians in there.
Whovian heaven.
Have your fun. Watch Doctor Who.
The best place on earth.
And there's going to be a lot more people joining you in there very soon. So
very exciting. Very exciting.
Make room.
Amazing.
George, thank you very much for your time, mate.
You
really
so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you for having
me
on.
Thank you.
It's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Where
coming on.
can people find you, hear you, do all that kind of thing?
Other than outside of your mum's house, don't know why I said that. You can find me on Twitter at GB Sheard. You can find me on YouTube, George Sheard. I have a podcast that comes out every single Thursday called Nostalgia Bit, which has its own YouTube and Spotify. I also stream on Twitch, YouTube every Tuesday. So yeah, I never stop.
So pretty much every possible platform
Everything.
you can just find
Pretty
George
much,
there.
pretty much everywhere. Just keep searching, you'll find me.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, we better wrap this up because I'm about to explode by the sun. Apparently, this is so.
You're about to do a big emotional speech to the gods of
Yeah,
Akaten.
let's do it.
Yeah,
Oh, God,
you have it all.
You're really being top fire. Hey, wow.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Amazing.
All right, George. Thank you very much.
George. Cheers.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Wow, how fun. George is an absolute legend, and we're so grateful for his time. Make sure you check out his stuff. Make sure you subscribe to us if you haven't already. Next week, we have an incredible, incredible guest. It is a fantastic episode of the podcast, and we look forward to bringing that to you next Thursday. We'll see you then.